You know Vladimir Putin, right? The man has a face that's basically carved from a block of Siberian ice. He could be watching a kitten video or signing a nuclear treaty, and you'd get the same expression. It's a masterclass in emotional lockdown. On this particular day, he was in his element, surrounded by the pomp and circumstance of a major international event. The air was thick with the smell of jet fuel and diplomatic tension, just the way he likes it. He stood there, shoulders squared, a slight, almost imperceptible smirk playing on his lips. He was the chess master, surveying the board, confident that he knew every piece and every possible move. He had seen it all, or so he thought. The event was a showcase of global military might, an international show and tell of very expensive toys. Leaders from around the world were gathered, each trying to look more important than the person next to them. Putin, a former KGB agent, is a pro at this game. He can read a room better than anyone, sizing up his rivals with a glance. He'd seen tanks, he'd seen fighter jets, he'd seen aircraft carriers, floating cities. Nothing really fazed him. He was there to project unshakable Russian strength. Little did he know, he was about to get a front-row seat to something that would short-circuit his composure. He chatted politely with other dignitaries, eyes scanning the horizon. The schedule promised a demo of the latest in aerial tech. For Putin, this was probably the boring part. He'd seen Sukhois, he'd seen MiGs dance through the sky. What could the Americans possibly show that would be different? Another loud jet, another series of high G turns. Yawn. He was more focused on the political maneuvering on the ground. His expectation for this airshow was, to put it mildly, low. The ghost in the sky. So what was this thing that was about to rock Putin's world? It's called the B-2 Spirit, the stealth bomber. When they say stealth, they aren't kidding. Not like phone on silent, like your phone never existed. The B-2 is a flying wing, a massive boomerang-shaped aircraft, straight out of a sci-fi movie, designed to be invisible. Visible to the eye, yes. If it flies over you, you'll see it. Invisible to radar. The genius, shape and materials, no tail fin, no sharp angles, nothing for radar waves to bounce off of. Smooth curves deflect radar, coated in radar-absorbent material. To a radar operator, a B-2 with over 170-foot wingspan can appear as small as a bird on their screen. Or more often than not, it doesn't appear at all. It's the military equivalent of showing up to a party unannounced. Developed in absolute secrecy during the Cold War. Cost, over $2 billion per plane. Billion with a B. You could buy a small country for that price. This bought the ability to penetrate any enemy airspace on Earth, completely undetected, deliver a payload of conventional weapons, deliver a payload of nuclear weapons. It was a checkmate move in the global chess game. The air show was proceeding as planned. Jet after jet screamed through the sky, performing loops and rolls that defied physics. The crowd would ooh and ah on cue. Putin, however, maintained his classic unreadable expression. He'd seen it all before. He was probably mentally rehearsing his next judo throw or planning Russia's 5-year economic plan. Then the announcer's voice came over the loudspeaker, hinting at a special demonstration. A hush fell over the crowd. There was a pause, a moment of stillness where the only sound was the wind. Everyone looked up at the empty blue sky, waiting. And they kept waiting. For a moment, it felt like a technical glitch. Then it happened. It didn't arrive with a roar. It didn't scream across the sky. It just appeared. One moment, there was nothing but blue sky, and the next, a massive, black, triangular shape was gliding silently overhead. It was the B-2 Spirit. It moved with an eerie, unnatural grace, more like a UFO from a Hollywood blockbuster than a piece of military hardware. The silence was the most shocking part. For a machine so enormous, it was disturbingly quiet, its engines emitting a low, otherworldly hum rather than the deafening roar of a typical bomber. This was the moment the mask slipped. As the B-2 Spirit ghosted across the sky, cameras split their focus from sky to faces. And there it was, Vladimir Putin, the master of the poker face, caught completely off guard. His facade crumbled for a fleeting instant. It wasn't a look of anger. It wasn't a look of fear. It wasn't a look of jealousy. It was pure, wide-eyed disbelief. His jaw was slightly slack. His eyes were wider than anyone had seen. His head tilted in profound astonishment. You could almost see the calculations behind his eyes. The gears of a KGB-trained mind spinning. What is that? How is it so quiet? Can our radar see it? How many do they have? All those questions written on his face. In that moment, he looked like any person in the crowd. The smirk was gone, replaced by raw awe, like a child's face seeing a magic trick. His reaction was human, almost comical. He leaned forward, trying to process the impossible shape. Other leaders were impressed, but his reaction was different. For him, it was a direct challenge, a ghost that could haunt borders. So to really understand Putin's face, you have to understand what the B-2 did to the world map. Before the B-2, military strategy ran on a clear set of rules. Countries built massive air defense networks, a layered system of radar stations, surface-to-air missiles, fighter jets. Like a giant electronic fortress wall, the Soviet Union had spent decades and untold billions building that shield. It was their pride and joy. They were sure nothing could get through. Then the B-2 Spirit arrived and basically told that wall, "That's cute." It wasn't meant to smash the wall. It was meant to be invisible to it. It could fly over the most advanced radar systems as if they weren't there. Decades of doctrine and investment were upended. Billions of rubles? Obsolete. Those layers of protection? Useless. The B-2 could, in theory, fly to Moscow and drop its payload and be halfway home before anyone knew what happened. The ultimate geopolitical cheat code. That created a massive strategic imbalance. Mutually assured destruction had kept a fragile Cold War peace. Both sides knew a nuclear strike meant devastating retaliation. But the B-2 threatened that balance. That look on Putin's face wasn't just a fleeting moment of surprise. It was a call to action. You can bet that before the B-2 even landed, messages were flying back to Moscow. The subtext was clear. We have a problem. A very big, very quiet, very black problem. The immediate aftermath in Russia was a frantic scramble. The Kremlin's top brass and aerospace engineers were likely pulled into emergency meetings. The primary directive would have been simple and urgent. Figure out what that thing was. Figure out how it works. Figure out how to build our own. Or, at the very least, figure out how to detect it. The race was on. This kicked off a new, stealth-focused chapter of the arms race. Russia poured immense resources into developing counter-stealth technologies. They began working on new types of radar, low-frequency systems, bistatic radar, all to catch a faint whisper of the B-2 on a radar screen. It was a monumental task, like trying to catch a ghost with a net full of holes. The result? The Tupolev PAK-DA. Russia's answer to the B-2, a flying wing that looks suspiciously familiar. Still largely in development and shrouded in secrecy, its purpose is clear: restore the strategic balance. To really get the picture, you have to remember the vibe of the era when this all went down. The Cold War had recently ended. The Soviet Union had collapsed. America was riding high, seen as the world's sole remaining superpower. There was a lot of talk about a new world order and the end of history. It was a confusing, transitional period. Russia, under new leadership, was trying to find its footing, to reassert itself as a global power and not just a crumbling empire. They wanted respect. They wanted to be seen as an equal to the United States. Into this delicate geopolitical climate flies the B-2 Spirit. The timing was everything. For the United States, showcasing the B-2 was a masterstroke of public diplomacy. It was military intimidation. It was a non-verbal way of saying, the Cold War may be over, but don't get it twisted. We are still light years ahead. It was a demonstration aimed not just at Russia, a rising China, and at America's own allies. It was a way to cement its status as the top dog, the undisputed global leader with technology that no one else could match. Okay, let's be real. The whole situation is kind of hilarious. Imagine you're Vladimir Putin. You've practiced your "I'm not impressed" face in the mirror for years. You've got it down to a science. You're at a big fancy party. You're the coolest guy in the room. Then your host, America, casually floats a real-life UFO over your head and doesn't even say anything. It's the ultimate power move, like showing up to a knife fight with a spaceship. There's no coming back from that. You just stand there and pretend you totally knew it was coming. You can almost imagine the conversation he had with his top general right after. "Sergei," he'd say, trying to regain his composure, "did you see that? The big black triangle thingy?" And Sergei, sweating profusely, would be like, "Yes, Mr. President, we are looking into it."